I will call this meeting to order. Mr. Howell, you mind doing the invocation? And Keith, you mind doing the pledge?
Bow our hands. Dear Heavenly Father, come to you tonight. Just so thankful for what you've given us and all that you do for us. We're thankful for this beautiful weather, Lord. Continue to be looking over our kids, our administrators, our faculty, our teachers, this board, as we continue to do the work of the county and the school, Lord. We just want to bring all the glory to you and all that we say and do. In your precious Son's name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Tonight we'll meet to discuss the business needs of the Jackson County School District, and later we will break into an executive session where we'll discuss personnel and legal matters. So first up, as far as approving the consent agenda, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we place the following items on consent. Under item B, numbers 2, 5, and 7 through 16. Item C, 1. Item D, 1 through 3, and 8 through 11. Items E, 3, G, 1 through 3, H, 1, J, 4 through 26, and items L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, and V.
Okay, we heard the consent in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Dobson. Any other discussion? All in favor? 5-0. All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Dobson. Second by Mr. Howell. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. All right, as far as the minutes, Jack? All right, now a motion to approve the minutes on March 15th. Motion by Mr. Lee. Second by
Got it? Second.
Ms. Dobson. All in favor? 5-0. All right, Dr. Stricker.
Okay, first of all, it's just so our community knows we're doing our recognitions at 4:30, and so I know we broadcast this meeting. So, and the reason we do that is to have those in the Van Cleve Middle School cafeteria, so there's room to enjoy the celebrations, have refreshments, and get everybody in there and pictures and so on. And so this evening we did get a chance to recognize Avery Higginbotham. He earned his Eagle Scout ranking and made the sign welcoming people to Van Cleve, which is just awesome. The track team from St. Martin Middle School, and then also the robotics coach, and then the archery program. So they were great recognitions. So just to start to get that out there to our community, Assistant Soup, you can help me do that as well. Just that we'll do recognitions at 4:30 and have some room to enjoy that. I'd also like to, she doesn't know I'm going to do this, but recognize Melissa. And I get that there's acronyms for everything, but her association is recognizing, it's for next month, but recognizing what clerks, board clerks, and administrative assistants do. And so, you know, there's a lot of detail to that. How many items in that agenda that we just read? Several. And there's a lot of detail people would have no idea that go into that. So thank you, Melissa. And
Appreciate what you do, Melissa.
Yeah. AABC. Can I just say that? The AABC. So, but anyway, moving on to the superintendent update. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Again, just to remind, for people that are new watching the board meeting, we have goal areas. Let me get back one slide. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Just start to, you step there, maybe it won't be long, but I want to take this opportunity to make sure that our community knows the way our board meetings are structured are a little bit different than a lot of other Board of Educations. But what we do is we align our goals and what we're trying to accomplish in our school to the board meeting structure, which just makes sense to me. And so every month, even as superintendent, it's a checks and balance system for myself of where are we in the main goal areas of the school district and how do the agenda items fit into what we're trying to accomplish. because you're able to analyze that over years. Over my years, I'm able to analyze board meetings. What we're talking about for 3 or 4 hours tonight doesn't match up with what our goals are. What time are we spending in here to what we feel our goals in the district? So these are the goal areas. Some are shaded out because we've been focused up to the May 18th bond election. We've been spending a proportional amount of time on facilities, and so we're focused on those main 3 areas. However, those other goal areas do stand. And so the first goal area, that no matter how busy we get, how important finances are, and how busy we get with facilities, what we are about and the business we run is student achievement. That's what it's about. And so, and then I also want our community to know, the Board of Education already knows this is not a good news item. I know a lot of school boards and superintendents will report the good news item time period. This is not that, it's an update. And so actually in the first bullet item, we have an adjustment we need to make, a correction we need to make we're not too happy with regarding ACT, but we will make the correction and move forward. So with that, we'll have our student achievement update and go from there. Penny.
Good evening. On your desk you have the March 22nd report. I wanted to give the board members a copy of that March 22nd report. And then I'll direct us to look at the screen. And that is the updated report. And last in March, I gave an ACT update that showed that our composite junior class of 2020, under pre-ACT initiative, that column there, composite ACT junior class 2020, is the same. So that did not change. Our current seniors, last year's juniors, that did not change. What did change was the data for the 2021 ACT, our juniors, our current juniors. And so if you look at the column under there, last month I reported Van Cleve at a 20.6, and it is actually, I thought all the scores had come in, but actually they had not. And so it is actually a 19.9 for our current juniors. Last month I reported East Central at a 20.6, and it is actually a 20.3. In St. Martin, I reported as a 20.7. It is actually a 20.2. And this is after a lot more scores came in than I thought we were anticipating. So wanted to make sure that we had that correct for the record. We did also discover an error in enrolling our kids in Van Cleve in our college and career readiness class. And so we have corrected that error. One interesting note that we discovered when we analyzed the data between the students who were in the college and career readiness class and those who were accidentally left out, there were 2-point difference. So those who were in that college and career readiness class scored 2 points higher than those who were not. So we anticipate that the scores would have come in a great deal higher had we had all of our kids enrolled in that college and career readiness class. If you look at the bottom chart, you can see that East Central High School, while they didn't quite make their projected growth, they missed it by a very slight amount. The students in the fall scored a 19 when we did our pretest, and they grew 1.3 points to 20.3. And at St. Martin, they had a 1.6 point increase from 18.6 to 20.2. And in Van Cleve, they also made growth from a 19.4 to a 19.9, which is a 0.5 point increase. And overall, our Jackson County, we scored 19 in the fall, and we made a 1.1 point increase to a 20.1. And the other interesting thing, if you'll notice, we are still, if you'll go back up to the top, if you look on the first column, not the first column, but the column under 2021 ACT, the end goal red, the goal is 20.0, and we are at a 20.1. So we feel good that we at least made our goal for this school year. We didn't exceed it by the amount that I got a little excited, thought we had exceeded next year's, but no, that's not the case. so I do apologize for the error, but I want to make sure we had it set straight.
And the scheduling, Mr. Boucher, I don't know if you want to comment at all, but the scheduling issue has been resolved, of course, and so that's the bad news. The bad news is...
Yeah, it was a miscommunication. There was, and I think this happened during the summer last year, there was about 50 students that were just not enrolled in the class. There was an assumption made that they could enroll in their senior year to get the class before they graduate, and that's where the mistake was made. But the good news, like Dr. Westfall said, is the kids that were in the class scored 2.1 points higher than the kids that were not in the class. So just imagine if we'd had those 50 kids in that class, where we would be sitting. So,
and so our community needs to hear in Board of Education because, and thank you for trusting us. You've invested, what is it, close to $500,000 in this. So the good news is we stumbled upon some valuable data, but of course there's some sacrifice there, I'm not happy about, but the program is working.
Yes.
And it's going to be more money for, I'm with you, Mr. Dickerson, that it's more money for the parents. That people should be glad to hear this program is an investment. Get your anyone listening, get your kids involved in this program. We're going to keep cranking it up. And we're going to have summer tutoring. Get your kids involved. The program does work, but we will make corrections to the scheduling issue.
So, Ms. Westphal, what will the summer tutoring look like? How
So-
does somebody, are there like time slots? Do you sign up? Do you call the principal?
What we are doing is I'm actually meeting with all of our ACT coaches this Wednesday. We are going to set up our registration process so that we're all doing the same thing. There will be time slots, and we will also have a protocol for how many sessions for each child. And at the beginning of the first session for every child, there will be a goal setting process where he or she will be able to say, I made this on the ACT previously, my goal is this, what do I need to do to get to that goal? And so then our ACT coaches will establish a plan, an individualized plan for that student.
Do you anticipate there won't be enough time slots in the summer to accommodate everybody, or do you think we'll be okay?
Well, we
Will
hope.
we have to do a priority system? Or?
We are going to, that's a good question. We are going to, the students who were missed out on the college and career readiness class in Bankley, we are going to prioritize the opportunity for those students. And then we will also look at the data to determine priorities other than that. But we'd like to open it up so that as many kids as possible can receive that benefit and have that opportunity. And we'll try to make the registration process as open as possible to
Everybody.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes. And we also, the other little thing that I wanted to say about ACT is we are going to expand the support of our teachers who teach the key supporting content, such as geometry, English 3, and algebra, etc., so that we are going into those classrooms and bolstering the curriculum so that it helps our students reach their ACT goals as well.
The next item. Any other questions for your
But I'm assuming, Penny, so the class that they take, that's a voluntary class, it's not a mandatory
The
class.
college and career readiness, that is mandatory.
Is that mandatory?
They
Okay.
have to take it in order to graduate now. And so what we did, we capitalized on that, and since everybody has to go through it, we're putting everybody through it in their junior year, so that, as much as possible, so that they can benefit our junior scores.
Now, is the one thing, I was talking to somebody, and it didn't really dawn on me, but, I know we're focusing, like we get them started in there in the junior year. Is there any concerns about, like some colleges, I guess it's one thing, when I went through with my son in college, a lot of times the scholarship cutoff is that December before they graduate. So in other words, so this past December for this year's graduates, is that timeline taken into account? Because some colleges, it's as early as the summer prior to their senior year. So is any of that taken into consideration as far as maybe, I don't know, prioritizing, depending on what college they
Those
plan
are
on going
the
to?
conversations we will have Wednesday, And that is something that we'll make sure that we talk about,
Okay, good.
the cutoff dates.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to student involvement, this is something that it's home with me. You can fact check. You don't have to do much research to find study after study of correlations between students being involved, and it's hard not to smirk, and increased student achievement. When students are engaged in school, whether it be music, robotics, varsity football, cheerleading, they're engaged in school for several reasons. One, it's healthy, social emotional reasons, but secondly, they connect with a coach or a sponsor that can get on them and guide them, just like many of you maybe. The reason I'm here is coaches that made a difference in my life. Going through my dad's stuff, we just passed away this January. He wrote a paper in the 1965 on it about kids being involved in school. 1965, he wrote a paper, Indiana University, where he got his master's regarding student involvement and academic achievement. But it's not rocket science, and so. If I had my way, it's something, but I think I've thrown enough balls in the air right now for our school board and for our moving forward. But a goal of mine would be that it's a graduation requirement. Why wouldn't we? If this were a private school and I owned it, it would be a requirement that each year you are involved in an activity as a graduation requirement. And again, it could be 4-H, church related. I would really open it up. But that's how big it is for me. And again, just look at the data, not just my opinion. That students are engaged in school. Think about it. Attendance goes up. Why? Even if for the wrong reasons. That those kids know they need to be there. Why? Because if I want to be on the basketball court, I better be in school, and everything follows. So it's very big for me. And so we're going to talk about the broad subject of student involvement, but we were approached to begin a wrestling program in the school. And I will say this, New Lothrop area public schools, where I was superintendent for 10 years, I think they're up to 19 state titles in wrestling. They're the #1 school in the state for wrestling. And I was a basketball player, but I will say this, the discipline that those wrestlers had to be a wrestler, the discipline, those were my leaders in my hallway. Those were my examples for the little kids. And so I will say that's one example of a program. You bring these programs into your school, academics will follow, academic achievement will follow. And so with that said, I'll turn that over to Penny.
Okay, so I would like to invite Matthew Walters up here. He has prepared a recommendation that we add the following supplements to each attendance center, and that would be a middle school dance sponsor, esports sponsor, bass fishing sponsor, and wrestling coach at each attendance center. And you can see the cost per supplement for each of these. And these, I'm going to let him go ahead and explain these a little bit more.
And this is
and why
information
they're
only, so
important.
we're not springing this on you tonight for approval. This is
Right.
information discussion.
So the way this actually developed is, it's been a lot of conversations over a lot of months. Right now, currently, we have middle school dance, esports, and bass fishing going on in at least one of our attendance centers. And these are adult teachers in our schools that are giving freely of their own time in order to start these teams, because kids were wanting to do these things. And they kept on knocking on my door, Coach, can we start an esports team? Coach, can we start a bass fishing team? And in theory, the easy answer is yes, let's go do it. But you have to have an adult that's willing to step out and do it. And these are all MHSA-sponsored activities. So just in the past 2 years, Van Cleve has started esports. St. Martin currently has esports. I'm not sure about East Central if they have it right now, but I know that they've had contact and are interested in possibly getting started. Bass fishing, Van Cleve, we were actually the last of the 3 attendance centers to start a bass fishing team. The other 2 are on board with that. And East Central Middle School actually has a dance team now. They're the only one of the 3 attendance centers that have done it. So my whole thing is, if it's an MHSA-sponsored activity, we have teachers giving up their own free time to give these students those opportunities that Dr. Stricker was talking about in order to give these kids, because a lot of these kids, this is the only thing they have. Like our esports kids, they're not really involved in anything else. Our bass fishing kids, same thing. They're not really involved in anything else. If it's getting those kids in school and getting their grades up and getting them to a point where They're graduating, maybe even with honors at a point because they have to keep their grades up in order to do stuff. And there's scholarships out there and there's great opportunities, so why wouldn't we sponsor these things for these kids? Is kind of our whole aspect of it. And I think if we do have a supplement for middle school dance, you might see the other two attendance centers jump on board. We have to have adults that are willing to step up and give their time. And if it takes $1,500 to do that for somebody to do that, I'm all for it. Now the wrestling team, it kind of developed through a group that approached Dr. Boucher that's really trying to get different pockets of the state in order to jump on board with wrestling, because MHSA does sponsor wrestling as an activity. There is not a state championship for wrestling. I believe when Mr. Baggett was at Ocean Springs, he actually started the wrestling team there. They have a wrestling team, but it operates more as a club because there's no other teams around here to wrestle with. So they'll go to Florida, they'll go to Alabama, they'll go find people to wrestle with. This group's specifically targeting Jackson County in order to get Vancouver, East Central, St. Martin, Pascagoula, Gaucher, maybe even Moss Point to get on board with wrestling. Maybe it starts as a Jackson County championship, and then as the pockets of the state start to grow together, maybe we do have a state championship. I, in fact, one day late last week, a kid knocked on my door and said, "Coach Walters, have you ever thought about starting a wrestling team?" I said, "That's a funny story, because we actually have the mats. The mats have already been donated to us. This group says they're going to donate the uniforms, the first 15 uniforms to us. They're even going to donate a coach to us." So they're willing to jump on board and give these kids an opportunity to do things. And I just think it's a great opportunity to reach those kids. I think we're gradually trying to meet all of the needs that MHSA has to offer. And this is just another step towards doing that. And what a great opportunity for kids. The more things that we give kids to do, the less chance that they're out there doing something they shouldn't be doing. So that's why we're bringing this to you. I hope it's not too much to ask for. I don't think it is too much to ask for in order to give these kids an opportunity. So if you have any questions, we can
budget-wise, like we did this year, you make decisions, right? You make decisions and you balance your budget. Like this year, we didn't have bus drivers, so guess what? We raised bus pay, and I found out from our transportation directors at work we had bus drivers. We had teachers during COVID that said, "Dr. Stricker, we need full-time subs in those buildings." I couldn't even walk down a hallway with one of them not thanking me. But then we had to what? We had to possibly raise elementary class size a tick, and we didn't end up doing it, correct? We did not end up doing it. But it was a decision that I, as the leader, was okay with saying, look, these were issues we had to spend some money, and possibly just a tick. It was going to be, what were we looking at proposing originally?
Just
a half a student. But we did not do it because we had some money that came in. But the point I'm making to the subject is I want our community listening and board to know that as your leader, I'm okay with these kind of decisions to where you bet. If I can get kids involved in a wrestling program, they come to school, they graduate, kids that may not graduate, or I don't understand bass fishing, but
there's actually like a lot of scholarships.
But yeah, so if bass fishing gets me to school or whatever, but you know where I'm going to, where I'm okay with it. If when the budget comes up, the point I'm making, I'm okay with the decisions we're making, so I want the board to know I'm not going to sell you out and say, you know, okay, well, we don't want to raise cost size either. No, I'll take ownership of these decisions, that we made these decisions, and look at all these kids now. Our student achievement's going up, our attendance is going up. Yeah, we may have to bump a quarter of a student, that class size up a little bit, maybe, as example. But I want the board to know that when we're bringing you these things, these people may not be, but I want you to know Ryan and myself and Christy, we're certainly thinking of, okay, where's this money coming from? How are we going to keep that fund equity at the goal fund equity? I want the board to make sure that we are very mindful of that when we're looking at doing these. But these are decisions and priorities that we're discussing as a team. What are the priorities? But let's keep our budget balanced.
And if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any discussion?
I do have one question. In your esports, bass fishing, and wrestling, are they, I know that two are already sanctioned by MHSAA. So is it a girls and is there a male, female
It's
competition?
co-ed.
It's co-ed.
Yes, they compete co-ed. So if you're a male or a female on the esports team, you just compete on the sports team. It's not a boys and a girls team.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing with bass fishing. And wrestling would be the same thing. You would just compete, girls would compete against girls. I'll let Mr. Bagley.
I've had girls compete against boys in wrestling in the past.
Okay, cool.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'm
When you
I
feel bad, some outcomes. I've seen
Yeah.
in Michigan too, same thing.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Yeah, and the diversity, I appreciate you coming to us with this, because I think with a district with so much diversity, we have to provide diverse opportunities for our students for their success. So I appreciate the list and the information.
Yeah, and I totally agree. You know, I'll say, you know, when I first heard about esports, I was like, what is the esports? What is that? But I had a young man, I want to say this was several years ago when this first came about. He was one of those wallflowers, you know, he wasn't involved in anything. He never talked much. Before he got excited about that, he really did. So, yeah, and he's one of those kids you're talking about that isn't involved, but when he found out about that, he got involved. He was part of, I guess, you know, it's a club right now, I guess, and that's the way he got involved with it. But, yeah, I think I can kind of speak for the board on this, you know, I mean, I think we definitely support activities, extracurricular activities. It's just basically, you know, when it comes budget time, just show us what it's going to cost us, if anything. I mean, I know on paper here it's about $20,000 roughly. You know, if it's in the budget and we can afford it, absolutely. You know, and I'm definitely in favor of any type of extracurricular activities in the school system. So, yeah, I appreciate you putting this together for us.
It should also be known that Van Cleve competed in the championships this year. Came up a little short in esports.
Oh, really?
In esports.
I was getting ready to say, we've actually had some really early success in it.
What exactly is it?
So
Video game.
I know it's gaming, but what is it? It's like Madden football, or?
There's different video games that you can play, and there's actually some talk of, what's that really popular? My son plays it all the time.
Minecraft.
Fortnite. They're actually talking about including
Fortnite.
Fortnite into it right now too. But it's different video games, and they'll compete against, and it's great because you actually never have to leave your school. We have a little setup at Van Cleve High School where it's esports goes after school, and they're there every day. In fact, they might be there when I head back to my office tonight, you know, to kind of go shut down for the day. Coach Chatfield's kind of given his own free time, and he's there all the time. As soon as middle school gets out, he's making his way to the building, and they're really working hard. And it's just different games, and it depends on the category they want to compete in. And they did compete for a state championship this past fall, and just came up just a little bit short.
Well, David, I know you're a Fortnite guy. I mean, you're excited.
Now, my kids can tell you all about it.
Fortnite guy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to softball.
All right,
Thank you.
And before Penny reports on the testing, you know, I was at East Central, or no, St. Martin High School this morning, walking through, and you know, I can't make this up. I know we're having a board meeting this evening. This happened today. It's just factual. And one of the teachers called me in. It's the department above where the food lab is. I think it's the Social Studies and Government department, but it teaches advanced classes. And he said he just got done telling the students that the seat time that they had, that they should consider themselves blessed, that there's not kids, there's still students in the United States that have been back in school. And so I know I say that every time, but I want to compliment the board, and every awards program I speak at, I compliment our parents, because in this teacher coincidentally just talked to the students even, that they're blessed that they had this seat time, especially in your advanced classes, with a teacher face to face. So I'm excited about testing, but I wanted Penny to report on our testing.
Okay, and it's really brief. I spoke with Ms. Stevens today, and she said that testing, state testing is underway, and it's proceeding very well with minimal problems.
Rain.
So, yeah, we did have a potential problem the other day with rain. We were able to reschedule some, and then some were able to just move ahead as planned. But this year, the State Department has extended the window, so it's a really wide window. We will be state testing from now until about mid-May. So just pray for our people and for the kids and the parents. It's a lot of preparation goes into this, and it's a lot of work. So we're proud of our kids, and thankful for this opportunity for them. That's it for me.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Fiscal management, Ryan's going to give us a report here, but I will note that we went up a tick there with our fund balance. And any new community members listening to this broadcast, that 12% is pretty conservative of what I've seen across the country. And so it's a conservative fund balance. Again, for people that don't know, fund balance is the money you have remaining after all the bills are paid, more or less. Like if you have a home checking account, what is left at the end of the paying the bills. Rainy day fund is what it's known as. So while that looks good, we're at 12.8 with a goal of 12, there still is a potential structural deficit. But we have to make projections, best guess estimates, and so on based off data. And we have Mr. Data right here, we don't have to worry. But just so you know, we're keeping an eye on that as we move through going into the budget cycle here. So with that, but I'll go ahead and comment on the last bullet, and then we'll just let Ryan give us a whole update. But regarding the teacher pay increase, the teacher assistant pay increase, that's from the state. We are working and researching the cost for the increase of pay for non-certified staff. I will say it for the record, but I'm not throwing the board under the bus. I'll take ownership of this, and that is whenever possible, I feel it's important to give the same pay increase because we're all doing a job. We're all doing a job. One is not more important than another. Certainly teachers are the ones in the classroom with the kids. I do get that. But the bus driver gets them there, the food service worker feeds them, administrators do the task of administrating and so on. So we will research that, but I want to let you know it's coming, that we are looking at a recommendation to give a similar, it's hard to give exactly the same of what the teachers are getting, but I'll let Ryan talk about that, so go ahead.
So on the financial update for this month, no big changes on projected fund balance, no real big changes on the capital balances. I will just note that those capital balances exclude the restroom approval that Brad's team is working on and we've advertised for, so just remember that. Regarding the teacher pay increase and the teacher assistant pay increase, it's for most individuals under those two categories, $1,000 for the upcoming school year. The state is funding the majority of those increases for any local paid teacher. Now you will have individuals that are federally funded, and those increases will come out of the respective federal programs, whether we're talking Title or SPED IDA. And as Dr. Strickland just mentioned, we are researching what the cost would look like to provide a similar increase to our non-certified staff, and what that would look like in terms of balancing the budget with what would end up being teacher units, or may not be a full unit, but it could be several units, but we'll bring that number to you all. And then also, I just want to note that on this agenda, I have a couple FYI items. One was the Mississippi AG opinion. Jack and I talked about it. That was a question, Mr. Dickerson, that you brought up last month regarding can we get teachers or staff members a surplus asset item. And the AG opinion, Jack and I think is pretty clear that we cannot, even to a third party, even if it's an indirect passing of that asset. So two other items I just want to bring up regarding the budget. I have a timeline on there as what I foresee as the timeline we want to follow for this year. July is when I would like to have that approved, if at all possible. This year we've got a lot more information, a lot earlier than we did last year with COVID and all the delays we had there, and the appropriations are not being known until July. And the second item I have on there are initial draft projections for revenues on the local level. And just take a look at those. Those are simply projections at this point. None of those numbers are known. Those are all estimates. So.
Questions?
Any other questions? Discussion? Thank you.
All right, next Ryan.
Okay, moving on to facilities, we'll start with David. Can give the update regarding construction projects and HVAC and custodial services as well, if you will, Jim.
No problem. So I won't steal Brad's thunder on the construction projects. From a HVAC and maintenance standpoint, we have 3 people that are scheduled to start May 3rd. So for the first time since I've been here, we will be providing our own HVAC services in-house. The truck and tools have been ordered. Ordering vehicles off the state contract is no easy feat. It will be a late summer delivery for those vehicles, but all three people do have transportation of their own that they'll be providing in the meantime. Custodial meetings, we've been having those monthly, where our goals are standardizing the operations and developing an actual custodial manual that we'll be following in the future. We'll start developing that.
You know, what we're finding, we're having monthly meetings with the custodial and maintenance staff. And you learn a lot by bringing the group together, right? The people that actually do the job. And, you know, we're finding that there really isn't a standard in it. Don't get me wrong, great things are being done, but maybe Glenn likes to mow yards, so he has the best yards, but doesn't maybe like to clean the bathrooms so much. But Troy really likes cleaning the bathrooms, and so his area, the restrooms are real clean, but maybe he's not big on weed eating in the yard. And we're finding that it's according to the person of how the cleanliness and how things are done. And I say, of course you can't run, I don't believe, an organization that way. Again, we want to be that A district every year, the New England Patriots, you know, or whatever of the scorecard there. And so we're really trying to standardize items like that. It may sound small, but it's not. I feel strongly we need to standardize cleanliness, how the buildings are mowed, how things are done. And so I appreciate David taking the lead on that.
The other thing is, and I have to admit, I stole this from Christy, the idea of creating this running ledger of items. So each month I hope to extend these items on here, make it easy for y'all to keep track of. And with that, Brad?
Well, speaking of cleanliness, just want to say I thought the bubble gum removal stuff was looking pretty good.
It's getting there.
I know.
It's a slow process. But it's on our list to finish up this summer. I think you'll be impressed when we get done with the finished product. Remember, we're talking about, I don't know, how many years? 30 years of gum that we're trying to clean up.
Well, you can tell,
Thanks for bringing that up.
walk out there, you can tell.
Now you won't be able to walk through the...
I notice it when I walk through every day.
Yeah, he's been showing on that for a while.
So this may be the last time that we talk about St. Mark Band.
And then one quick note, we are going to move Brad's items up to, it just makes sense, when we cover facilities, let's have Brad's items covered right after that. It just makes sense. So just that'd be a change we're making, yeah. It makes logic sense.
No objection,
Yeah.
Brad, really?
I do what I can. This may be the last time we talk about St. Mark. I hope this is the last time we talk about St. Mark Band Hall and East Central Upper, but I just turned in closeout documents to David electronically tonight. So, you know, there are a few things, warranty issues and some things that have come up. We did find some roof leaks over the last week at East Central Upper. The contractor's already addressing those. A few erosion issues around the building, but, you know, I was telling David today, of course, you don't like to find out about roof leaks, but when you get 12 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, if you're going to have them, you're going to find them. So that worked out that we were able to find them. It was nothing major. It was just some seams that weren't welded completely. So they've addressed those and hopefully gotten all of that. But the contractor's been very responsive in going back and addressing everything that comes up. St. Martin, we had a fall arrest system that was back ordered on the ladder for the roof. It finally came in and was installed. So those are recommended final payment on those, and that will close those projects out officially. But if something comes up for the next year, I've got no concerns that we won't get it addressed. Let's see what else. The track is substantially complete, and I think you saw the video that David posted of the way that it turned out. I'm real happy with it. You know, getting done. I think it looks great. I think they did a good job on it. We are striping on the parking lot was added through contingency funds. That was scheduled to be done tomorrow. And I did not talk to the contractor today, but I assume that it'll get done tomorrow or early this week. I don't know if the rain last week put other things behind, but that is going to get done this week. We're also looking at the possibility of adding a gate across the front, which was not in the project originally, but we're looking at adding that via contingency funds as well. And then that would, we should be able to close that one out officially, hopefully next month.
Are we going to be able to do a track meet on that this year?
Well, and we needed the shot put, We will need to have a track meet. We will
Yeah.
need to, for shotgun disc, so.
There's,
We can host a meet with running events, to answer your question. And so, but the problem with having it this late in the year, especially for all-American runners like Christian, is towards the end of the year, runners really dial into what meets they're running, what specific workouts, so it may be tough. You see what I'm saying? He's dialed in, well, Christian is dialed into the national meet. And it gets very particular towards the end, so I don't know if we'll be able to have a meet like I would have wanted for Christian to get that track record, but it's just later in the year, so we may, I'll talk to the assistant supes and see if we can get some scheduled, but it would be running events, because we do need to get we don't have the shot put area completed yet, so we will figure that out.
it won't be because of a contractual issue with the contractor. So if logistically it works out, you'll be clear. All right, so we opened bids last week for the East Central Middle School gym replacement. That's on here, I think it's on consent. It was $193, $197, I can't remember which, but less than $200,000. Midwestern Roofers, who's done work for the district before, was low bidder. They're certified in the product that was specified, so and that came within the budget, so no concerns there. And that is for the alternate as well, which is the entire roof. So Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe insurance was paying for the upper portion of the roof. So we went ahead and bidded the other portions of the roof with that alternate. And so it's, that includes all of that, so you get that entire building done at the same time. And obviously you get to take advantage of the contract already being there, and insurance company paying for that, so.
You get a warranty.
You will, yeah, you have 20-year warranty.
Any issues with the rain this past week there?
Well, I mean, we haven't even started construction on it yet. I don't know if there was anything that happened. Mr. Terry, I don't know if you know of anything that happened this week, last week.
With the middle
We
school?
just cleaned up as we go. Because it's just, we're able to survive it, and I think we're going to move right on it in now.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and, after your approval tonight, we'll get contract pulled together and get a notice to proceed and start just as fast as we can start. Okay, restroom project, St. Martin is out for bid. We opened bids at 2 o'clock on, I think the 12th, whatever the next board meeting is, we opened that afternoon. That was just as soon as we could, the way the calendar fell, that's as soon as we could possibly open. So my intent will be to open those and go ahead and make phone calls, vet the contractor. Hopefully we don't have anything abnormal with the bids, and I can have a recommendation ready for a few hours later next month to get that one under construction. And then we're starting the East Central and Van Clay restroom designs as well. So we wanted to get St. Martin done, kind of work on complete. Right.
So can they turn
So the way
from
that it's,
award to start work in 2 weeks?
the way that we've got the contract drawn up right now, proposal is to have east and north finished before school starts back, and then have upper and the other, everything other than the lower elementaries, we have those being done by September 30th. So I don't think that there's quite enough time to get it done across the entire attendance center over the summer, but we'll certainly get the bulk of it, which are the 2 lower elementaries, out of the way. And then the last thing is Ballpark Road, part of my project. And my contractor friend was supposed to be here, and I don't see him here. There's a change order on the agenda tonight, and I believe this may be the first change order that I've ever had to bring to the board that wasn't something that you had requested we bring. So that contract was bid with a unit price already established for additional muck out of unsuitable soils and import of clean materials. And that was $25 per cubic yard. And early on in the project, and we had in the base bid was to cut 2 feet across the entire site. And early on in the project, he called, he said, hey, look, he sent a video of the pumping, which is just where it's completely unstable. He said, I got this area, it's pumping, we're going to have to over-excavate this area. We said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Sent people out, watched it, and that came to $4,000 worth of additional material, which we paid for out of the contingency fund, which is what it was there for. Well, then, as he continued to cut across the site, he ran into more of those areas. And rain was coming, and so he took it upon himself to go ahead and do the work. And he had a survey crew come in and shoot points all along the area where he mucked out. And then after he filled it, he sent those numbers to us so that we could verify quantities of what was done. And as it all turns out, it was an over excavation of, and these numbers are round numbers, but around $50,000. And we had $20,000 in contingency. And so I told him, I said, well, it's a little late for that. So he said, well, if I'd have let it rain in it, you'd have had an even bigger problem, which is true. You know, once you cut that and you open that up, you've got to fix it pretty quick. He did that on his own, and then kind of put us in this spot. So in talking to him and negotiating, he's cutting his unit price in half. And that gets us down to, from the $50,000 roughly number that we originally had, down to a $22,000 change order is what he's requesting. His numbers that he sent over, we did verify. I mean, it checks out. The only thing that I have told him is, need to know about that ahead of time. Now, I don't know what we would have done had he called with this big hole and said, hey, I've got to do this, and I said, okay, the board meeting's in 2 weeks.
If you would have called me, I would have said do it.
Yeah. I mean,
Take ownership of it.
and, you know, if you've got a roof that's open, if you've got a hole that's open, those are things that you kind of got to deal with immediately. Otherwise, the problem gets a whole lot worse. So that's where we're at, and I did ask him to be here so that he could explain all this in case there were any questions additionally, because you know, I mean, he did it, but you know, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility, and that's what I'm saying here. But I think I've addressed everything that he would have told you. And he's also putting in an additional pipe that may or may not be needed, but he just had one, and he's putting that in as well. So, and he's not charging for that; he's donating labor and material. So I do think that he's doing everything he can to, you know, to make this a fair deal to the district. So that's what the change order that's coming up under Brian. But as soon as it dries out, you know, he's got all the underground electricals in, and as soon as it dries out, he's going to start bringing rock in. And so we should be finishing that up here in the next 30 to 25 days.
Okay. One thing that I asked David about was, and I told him just to kind of, just in case, this is before this happened. But my thought process was just in case there was any contingency. And thinking about how this is sort of like going to be a prototype for if we build a secure bus facility at St. Martin or East Central, is rather than having a manual gate, having an automated gate there where you don't have to get out of the bus, open the gate, go back to the bus, then close the gate. And so I'd asked him, just say, can you get the board like a ROM estimate what that would cost, if that's something the board would want to consider, if it's not too expensive. So that was just something I had asked him to look at for us. I assume that's something that can be installed later, but just kind of let the board know I did ask that. And did you ever get a cost on that?
We talked about, no, sir. Not an actual cost yet.
I've got a project that we did a year and a half ago where we put one in. I can go pull that number now. I mean, you know, you want a swing gate, you want a slide gate. I mean, there's different things that you can do. So that price isn't going to be, you know, absolute certain, but it'll at least give you a ROM, kind of what it costs. And we did it for buses where it had a low, you know, keypad, if you will, and then a higher one depending on if you were in a car, if you were in a bus. So it did have all of that into it, so I can look at that number and I can shoot that to David.
Okay, is the board okay with that? Just giving us a cost on that, just kind of see the cost? Okay, just give us a cost on that to see what it would be.
Well, it really makes sense in light of this recent, we just had what?
Another one got cut.
Yeah, I mean, so we should have had security anyway, right? Security is a good thing to have, but it's a serious thing, and people are taking these parts off these buses. It will pay for itself to have that security, so.
Okay.
Hey, Greg.
What?
Yes, sir.
Quick question. One of the first things that you talked about, the East Central Upper Elementary classroom wing, so there was some extensive drainage installed as part of that. Any backups? Everything seemed to be working good during the rain?
As far as I know, I didn't get any phone calls, and I know
Did it work?
I can't honestly tell you, there was so much water, there was probably, put at the stop sign, foot and a half, I mean, it was ridiculously, nothing was draining off, so where everybody was getting off, it was kind of hard to tell.
You getting a new building?
No, it did not get the new building.
Did you get any of the older buildings?
It didn't get in, but I don't think it got in the hallways, but it was very hard to get to the building.
Okay, in between your problems, gotcha, okay, all right, thank you.
say if it didn't get in, it did its job, and if there was ever a time to test it,
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen the rainfall totals, but I bet that was close to a 75-year storm.
It couldn't drain off fast enough, but once it did drain, it drained, but it didn't, it was like coming down unbelievable.
Okay.
And the connector to the new connector that we're proposing in the bond would eliminate a lot of that problem with the entry of students coming through that floodwater, correct? The design of that?
Should.
Yes.
It should. I mean, you'll have a whole new parking lot area, pull up. All that will be elevated. So getting from the bus into the building should be fixed.
Part of this bond, as part of the bond proposal. Great. That's what I thought. Okay, good. And then I had another question. Let me swing back around when you were talking about the restroom renovations, and you said east and north would be done by the beginning of school, but the others by September 30th. What are the others? All others?
We've got work going on at the upper. Everything else in St. Mark.
So will it impede, though, if it's September 30th, how is that going to interfere with the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, there's going to be some scheduling that we're going to have to, I mean, obviously, we're not going to go in and say, well, there's no restrooms in this school. I mean, it'll have to be kind of staged.
Okay,
Once we
okay.
get the contractor on board, we'll sit down with him and with Mr. Bag and figure out.
Principal, we can work around it.
Good, just want to verify that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll be doing the same thing with Van Cleve and East Central. It's going to have to be a phased approach where, we can't shut down all the restrooms in an area. We got to.
Good.
And that's what we've done, in many districts. So
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll work around it.
Good deal.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
A1 before Brad,
We want to skip down to, well,
I'll wait.
All right. Yeah, it's still an improvement from before. Yeah, we still got 2 hours off this evening. Stay an extra 15. So, moving on to the bond, you have some documents in front of you, some hard copies that were printed. The timeline, we have used this as a checklist. The items in red are items that, and I appreciate the work Christy has done, really Christy and Ryan making sure those items are more legal. But we have adjusted this, and I'm certainly not going to read this document to you. We have adjusted it according to input from the administrative team. Now remember, we have the information group, which is the administrative group in the school district, and then there's the advocacy team, which is, we're actually meeting Wednesday. So if a couple board, we can't have 3 board members, but if anyone wants to join us, let me know or let Troy know. But we have made adjustments to this timeline or plan according to input from those 2 groups. But unless you want me to, I'm not going to read that to you, but you can see the timeline there. Moving on to the FAQ, I did frequently asked questions, or Q&A, questions and answers. This is a working document. We just added a couple items even today. As questions come in, whether through Facebook, community, through a principals meeting, we do add those onto this document. But in summary, what I'd like to say to the Board of Education and the community that is listening to the board meeting, in summary, it's an FAQ, frequently asked questions. I'm going to even summarize that. The first point that I would like to make, I want to make sure, because this is where the heat will be turned up in the next month. And a lot of people get angry, it gets personal, and I've been through this before. It's unfortunate, but it's human nature. It's human nature, because we're talking about raising people's taxes. I get it. It does get personal. And so, but I want to reiterate to our community, if they get a chance to go to our website, that we took, as a Board of Education and administrative, we took more time. I've been in facility projects like this for 20 years. We took more time to seek input, to have studies done. Could we have done more? You bet. Could we have done more? That you can always do more, but we took over a year to research this. And so I want our community to know that this is a community-driven plan. Now, there may be people listening that are saying, wait a second, my input's not in there. I think we need more classrooms here, or we need this and that. You're not going to take a community with 10,000 students in our school community, 1,300 employees, and everyone's going to feel that they had exact input of what this plan should be. So I hope our community does understand that we're all on the same team here at the end of the day, whether the bond passes or not. We're going to move forward with goals like ACT and the different things we're doing for these kids. But I want our community to know, if they get a chance, go to our website. We sought input, we had studies done, we were very thorough. The second point I'd like to make is the 29-29-42 split. I'm coming up with my own term. This is my quotable term here. It was good-hearted politics. When we came up with that 29-29-42 split, I want to reiterate to our community, we looked at the division of the money from the bond. We looked at it 4 different ways. Ryan Early did an excellent job. He came up with ways of looking at it I never would have thought of. I want our community to know that the bottom line, because I'm not going to mislead them, you bet it was political. Each attendance center wanted to use the data that benefited their children and their community the best. That's called good-hearted politics. And so I want people to know, I want to reiterate, it was political, and we did the best we could to come up with the division of the money, the 29-29-42. Now, there's a little bit of finger pointing. Well, I'm in East Central or I'm in St. Martin. I don't think East Central should get that or St. Martin shouldn't get that. What we did then was community input. So someone maybe in Van Cleve doesn't like what someone in St. Martin, what the committee in St. Martin came up with. That's going to happen. And so even that, it's good-hearted politics. We're all doing the best we can, spend our tax money. But I want to reiterate to our community that 29-29-42 split wasn't easy. We spent a lot of time on that. And so that's the best we felt we could do in compromising. Bullet point number 3, large-scale spending, other than the commitment that this board has made in facilities. Large-scale spending, the last time we've done that as a community was 1996. So anybody listening or in this room on the board, where were you in 96? Where were you in 96? It's been a while. We have 1.25 million square feet. 1.25 million square feet. And it's been since 96, since we've had a large-scale expenditure. I'm not selling the bond right now. I'm really, it sounds like I am. I'm just telling you, that needs communicated, and that's a frequently asked question of why are we spending this much? Because it is a lot. 7.5 mils is a lot, you bet it is. Why are we doing that? 1996 and before that, 1980. Where were you in 1980? I guess I need to be careful when I'm looking, because it's an age-driven question. Jack, where were you in 1980?
Getting married.
That's how long ago. Wow. Jack, he's getting paid to be here. So, but seriously, before 96, it was 1980. And so I want our community to know this is a conservative board. We're conservative, but we have 1.25 million square feet, 1996, 1980, for large-scale expenditure. That's not, for lack of a better term, liberal spending of money. If it is conservative, there's just a lot that needs to be done. I do hear a lot from the St. Martin area with population. Population, and did you look at the population student growth? We keep hearing about these neighborhoods. Like we did before we got into the demographic study. Remember, we were like, all the growth, we're not prepared. And what we found from the study is really the growth is not equaling student enrollment increase. It is some, but not what we thought. And so, I went into this thinking we were going to need to build a school in St. Martin. And we really found, I want to reiterate to our taxpayer, we're using data that we really don't feel we need a school, and we're making the changes that can accommodate the growth. And so this gets emotional, and emotionally people are seeing these neighborhoods and they're saying we need a new school it's emotional. So I ask our taxpayer to the best of their ability to look at that study if you get a chance, and look at the data we're looking at there. And then lastly, I want people to know that what they vote on the ballot is what we have to do. And for example, we cannot use that money for salaries because one rumor that was out there is that for example, how we're going to fund this project is by cutting teachers. I point blank direct answer, that's going to be further from the truth. It's illegal. We would personally be in legal trouble. I'd be in jail. That's legally wrong and would be taken very seriously. And well, Ryan wouldn't let us do that, even if we felt we wanted to do this illegal action, which we would not. And so that's an example. I want people to know that this is watched very closely and should be, and audited and monitored. And so what people vote is what they will get. And so, and the divided money as well, the 29, 29, 42. Because a common question with staff members, I don't know what the past is here, but when I would meet with the different groups, teachers would, Mary was the first one was East Central Lower. And you knew I didn't understand the question because I didn't get it. Dr. Stricker, what projects are they starting on? And I gave an answer off subject. And because there's maybe some history here of certain projects getting done, running out of money, and not being able to do projects in the other attendance centers. I want our taxpayers to know that's not how this will go. Now, when pricing come in, labor costs come in, we may have to adjust projects, you bet. But still, the amount of money going to that attendance center and what people voted in, we have to stick with. So, I just want to reiterate that. That's the summary of the summary. So that's a summary from the FAQ, but I did highlight some areas in there for you. Any questions about that? Community committee meeting, Wednesday again, maybe check with Troy. It'd be nice to have a couple board members there to be in that meeting. You get a free dinner. A free dinner at the Mexican restaurant here in town, and so if you want a free dinner, come out, we eat, and we talk, and we're out there an hour and a half. It really doesn't take long if you can make it. All right, going on to some of the renderings that are here on the wall as well. We're going to start to get these out there. You can be assistant suits, and because a picture tells the story, right? People want to see a picture, and so I printed the handouts. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I did want to put those up on the screen because our viewers do get to see that correctly. I'll pause so they get to see that, but we will get that information out there. And regarding these, thank you, Brad. By the way, we have pushed you very hard. And I know you've gone outside the scope of really what we're paying for, so thank you, and nice job. Please understand that if and when the bond gets voted in, adjustments will be made to the plans that you see here, but we have to start somewhere so people can get a conceptual idea. Again, everyone likes the picture, right? And so we needed to get out there, but changes can be made to these. Not only the layouts of the proposals, but also the actual structure, how the structure looks. But we felt we needed to get some pictures out there. And so you can see that right there we have the East Central renderings. And then we're also going to get a rendering. Are you going to work tonight after you leave here early? Because you leave here early. So
Which one?
yeah, you have a couple hours, a couple extra hours for the multi-purpose building in East Central.
It's done.
It is done? Okay, so we'll get that out there as well, because, and the multi-purpose building for East Central would be proposed now, but again, we can change this within the ballot language, and nothing to hide to people listening to this meeting. We can make adjustments, but a proposal we have on the table now is a shared facility between the high school that would use it during the evening, and then during the day, the elementary, who does not have a gym, would have that gym access during the day. So we will get that out there. So thank you, Brad. I didn't know that was completed. And you can see St. Martin there. And again, adjustments could be made. Like even when you see St. Martin Upper Elementary, I know Mr. Dixon, even you and I talked about when we did the tour of coming out the front. Those adjustments can be made even when people vote yes and the money's coming in, and it's not plain trickery, or it's not being deceiving. We're being transparent that we will pick the best design that we feel is best for our students, but we had to get something out there. And so this is what we have out there for now, for St. Martin. Okay, next slide. What's that? The next slide is? It's a delay. Thank you. And same color, so there's the Van Cleve. And so that's an example. If you look at the Van Cleve, which is just an awesome building, if you look at the layout, that's awesome design, I feel, where you have, well, Todd, I'll let you go ahead and describe it if you would, the multi-purpose building.
The multi-purpose building is going to be phenomenal. If you look down at the bottom part of the picture there, the rendering there, the part that's in the light blue, that would be our new band hall. And to give you some perspective, that's about 11,000 square feet roughly, which is about the size of the band hall there. So if you look at the building as a whole, it's huge. That'll have direct access to the stage, which will be facing toward the 2 ball courts. Those are 2 full-size basketball courts. Now, there's no seating around it, but it gives you the opportunity to have boys basketball and girls basketball practicing at the same time. Girls volleyball will be able to stay in the gym, or maybe girls basketball and girls volleyball are in there and the boys stay in the gym. So we really have 3 full-size courts available to us. Up there in the top right-hand corner, you can see there is a little purple shaded area. That's a dance and a cheer studio. And again, this whole process, really the building changed as we went through every community meeting and listened to what they wanted. And they would say, you know, we need somewhere for girls cheer to dance, and we need somewhere where they can have mirrors on the wall so they can practice their moves and so forth. So we really, our project morphed tremendously as we went through it. And then on the left-hand side, there's some office space, so that way we'll be able to have the Van Cleve Attendance Center, and basically we will eliminate all of the trailers and the raised buildings and that just need to go, that are in disrepair. And as you can see, there's connected walkways that connect it to the lower elementary school up at the top, and then over there to the side it goes to the high school. It's just going to be a magnificent facility, you know, and I think, you know, people have commented on the look of the building and questioned why we were using this material. Really, this is just a rendering to give us an idea what the building is going to look like. When we get to the actual planning and construction phase, then we'll start delving into it and really looking at what materials we're going to use. A lot of it will be driven. A lot of it will be driven by what the market says, what construction materials cost.
So, and then regarding the elementary, you know, there's been a lot out there about that, and I understand that that's a major change, and that was a result of community input. I was actually out of the state with my father in that situation I had in Indiana. And so I want to make sure people know that that is not a concept that came top down. That was a concept from this community, but I do support it. And that is the concept that having all our students on one campus, for example, all our students would have access to that facility right there as compared to 3 miles down the road. And so that's a concept that came from the community. And again, we have the data to show that, you know, the student achievement in that building will be driven by the teachers and leaders and school district and the Board of Education, not by the size of the building. We have plenty of data to show that. We are working on a traffic plan to show that, because that's one thing out there now.
Actually, I met with Brad earlier, and so we're working on a construction of a turnaround to the, I don't know, what do you call that, the northeast side of the building. So the cars would be able to come in and we'll have a turnaround. It's really going to help us get the traffic all off of Highway 57. And we hope to, this is a project that we can do this summer. So that way next year when 3rd grade is there, we can implement it and see where it needs to be tweaked or maybe just modified a little bit before we just make the big move and consolidate the 2 schools.
But the concept of the shared facilities, you have the students, so we will have an extra, under my leadership, we're going to have an excellent principal and excellent teaching staff in that building. Those kids don't have the transitions. There's not a transition of a new principal, new teachers, new drop-off. The students go to one building and they stay in that building. And certainly, you know, then people have said, well, why aren't we doing that in St. Martin? We may, but we're not prepared to do that right now But to have everyone on one campus, for example, let's say, and maybe I'm long gone, 10, 15 years from now, we do have a swimming pool, and it is on that campus. Everything we do to that campus now can be shared, and so I like that facility. And so I do support the concept, and Mr. Boucher would tell you, when it was first brought to me, I said no. I'll say that. I know people are listening to this at home. I said no, because my instincts were way second. We just invested a lot of money on a building out there at the upper, and that was my instincts, and also part of it was selfish. I was like, yeah, and we're going to move the administration building there. Everybody's going to be criticizing me, but I was sold on this proposal, and so those are a lot of the questions that are coming up. But I feel good about what we're doing. I'm certain it's best for kids. So. But anyway, any questions with the 3 assistant soups of the renderings or with Brad here?
I'll have a question. In talking about the multi-purpose buildings at each school, I think there's a current need between girls basketball, boys basketball, varsity, junior varsity, girls volleyball, with the gym space. So we know there's already conflicting issues, and these multi-purpose gyms will alleviate a lot of those problems. But then we're talking about adding wrestling, and these other type of sports. So just wanted to ensure that not only are we trying to catch where we're at, but also what's coming ahead, because we're looking for further student involvement and increased activity. And so all these multi-purpose buildings would suffice, either that or the current gym, but it's going to be a necessity.
It will still be tight. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what? I'm not going to mislead you to where you bet. That's a good point. Wrestling, we need those gyms, and so.
But when we spoke to the gentleman that came to us with the wrestling proposal, he said they don't necessarily need the gym. They can work in the cafeteria.
Yes.
They can move the tables out, they roll their mats in, they practice, they roll them up, and they move them out. So they are willing and able to work around what we've already got in place.
As long as we'll have the new facilities.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Any other questions about any of the renderings? So, all right. I appreciate the time, because I really want our community to hear that, we're all doing the best we can, right?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Well, that's up to Mr. Frisbee.
Just one question. When y'all are combining the lowers, my understanding later in the time frame, the 4th and the 5th will go there as well, correct? How will every child get to eat an adequate amount of time in the one facility? That is one of my main concerns.
We've actually talked about it. With the 3rd grade in there, there's actually enough room to feed and get all the students to the cafeteria. When we get to that point, we've already talked about the possibility of expanding the cafeteria space and the kitchen area to accommodate that need. So that's all in the process and the planning. The initial estimate that we got was for the classrooms and an expansion of the cafeteria. So we have looked at that.
And then, of course, staffing, you would have the same ratio with staffing, because you would need the staffing it up. So the staffing would be there as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank y'all for
Right.
allowing me.
If you got any other questions, feel free to contact Todd, me, or Dr. Stricker, and anybody that you know as well, because there's a lot of questions out there, and I appreciate you asking the question rather than, some people start a rumor up with half knowledge. So
Right.
whatever you got to ask, make sure you feel free to speak up.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And this is some of the feedback I've got, just from, community workers that I work with is, these flyers are great, pictures are great, but you can only make a flyer so detailed. So, there's a lot of people asking, well, what about the flood? What about the traffic in Vancouver? And I'm not asking you to say it needs to be as detailed as possible on the flyer, but when we push out the flyer, whether it's on Facebook or social media, that's added in there like, hey, this is also included in the bond for this issue where we're making these additions, or the traffic is included in the plan for this combination in school, because a lot of people think it's only going to be worse, you're making it worse, or, and you see a lot of that negativity out there on social media. One person gets 10 people fired up, but, all that detail is not on the flyer, so it's good to get that information out there.
And go ahead, and Mr. Boucher, talk about what we're doing with Facebook, and then Penny, what we'll do is we will mirror what the committee is going to do. We'll mirror it from the.
So I met with the Van Cleve committee on Friday, and we came up with this idea that So the committee actually has created a Facebook page, and, a lot of times we're pointing people, hey, go read the FAQ, go look at the frequently asked questions, but they're not doing it. They're relying on social media. So what our team that runs that Facebook account is going to start doing is they're going to take a question from the frequently asked questions, plug it into the Facebook account, and put it out there with some more explanation and more details. Then the district is going to mirror that on their Facebook account. So maybe every day or every other day we'll have a new frequently asked question, maybe one of the hot questions that's coming up that we're going to be addressing and providing more details. And of course, then Facebook allows that forum for them to shoot a question back, and we can shoot an answer back.
Awesome. Great, anything else? Hour 15, not too bad. Anybody new to the board, that's just superintendent update, we're just now starting the meeting.
Faster than some, but not as quick as last month. Last month was quick.
Yeah.
Last month was quick. All right, so that brings us to, we're on item B6. A.
A1, the ballpark road.
A1. Oh, wait a minute. A1, I guess I'm not seeing it. Where's it?
This is what Brad spoke to earlier about the change order.
The soil.
It's A3A1.
A31. Motion? Motion by Mr. Dickerson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Howell. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. All right, so now we're going under Ryan. Item B6. Approve request to use NIB for Bankley bus engine replacement, $17,290. Have a motion.
Motion?
Motion by Ms.
Dobson?
Not going on.
Second by Mr. Lee. What is this?
This is a 2010 bus that needed an engine replacement. And it actually, as you can see, it actually already occurred. And we're in a situation right now where transportation, we're short on funds. And so this is coming to the board to try to get more budget basically opened up for the transportation department.
See, that was my question, was the dates here. I mean, this is dated April the 30th of last year, and why would this come before us now?
Just trying to get through the whole year without bringing it before you. I mean, honestly, it's just trying to work with what we have. If I came before y'all with everything like that, anytime we're over a certain account of which we have thousands, you guys would hate me. So we're just trying to, it's sometimes it's just musical chairs trying to slot things in, and at the end of the year, we have a much better idea of where we're going to land than we do in November. And so this is just off to the side, try not to bring it before y'all. But we have to, there's nothing.
And initially, we took it out of the budget that we had allocated to us and hoped that we would still be able to make it through the year, and then here we are 5 weeks out, and it's like, okay, we didn't quite make it. So that's how that happened.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? 5-0. Goes down to B17. B17 for approved open claim docket. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Lee.
Second.
Second by Mr. Howell. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. B18, approved prepaid claim docket. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Dobson. Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Howell. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. All right, brings us down to J2. Approve request of Van Cleve Attendance Center to reconfigure Van Cleve Upper, Van Cleve Lower. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Dobson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lee. Discuss. So this, we're basically talking about moving to third grade, because we had the open capacity down at the lower.
Correct.
Moving to third grade down to the lower. So this is something probably you were considering regardless bond or no bond,
Correct.
moving this down
And
there.
it also prevents us from having to put in a $350,000 new roof on that A building that leaks all the time.
Yeah, that's the one that's got the structural issue too, right?
That's the one that, yes, we had to have an engineer come out and they had to basically give us some specs on how to fix it. And we had to weld up some more support beams to keep that building over a couple of rooms up.
Okay. And I think you answered the other question. I was wondering about the cafeteria too, as far as feeding the kids.
Yeah,
So-
we've got it all worked out for next year. It's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
So this is the plan regardless of the outcome for the bond vote?
I believe so.
Right, yeah.
And then ultimately though, if the board decides that this is not the direction that they want to go, that actually frees up, that building is empty, which means we can eliminate that and then add on a new building if that's the direction we decide to go back that way at a later date. Which we would have to do something to build a new building because you couldn't build it until half that building was gone anyway. So it kind of gets you ready for two options, and that'll have to be made at a later date.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, 5-0. Thank you, Todd. All right, item J2, approve AABC Appreciation Week Certificate.
J3.
J3, have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Dobson, second by Mr. Lee. Any discussion?
Just want to say we appreciate the job that you do, Melissa.
We appreciate you, Melissa.
Very much.
All in favor? 5-0. And that takes us to 16th section. Item K2, approve amendment of lease following 8-year reappraisal. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Howell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dobson. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Item K3, approve amendment of lease Hyatt.
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Dobson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickerson. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Item K4, approve amendment of lease following 8-year appraisal Morrison. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Dobson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Howell. All in favor? 5-0. Item K5, approve amendment of lease following 8-year appraisal. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Dickerson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Item K6, approve request of Singing River Power to approve 2 right-of-way easements.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Lee.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickerson. So on this one, right, what exactly is this one?
Jack's gonna fill you in on this one.
These are the new, the Wi-Fi things that we approved a while back for the St. Martin, and so these would be easements to get electricity to those. And we've checked with the Secretary of State's office, and we don't have to do appraisals or anything like that because this is for school purposes, but we do need to, y'all need to approve it subject to us inserting a reverter clause into each of these easements, which says that if they cease to be used for what they're being used for this purpose, then it will revert back to the schools. So
Okay.
y'all could approve it like that, subject to inclusion of that. That's what we need.
And we've got that included?
Jack's working on the inclusion.
Yeah, we just
need to
found
get
that out
permission.
today, so we
We'll
couldn't,
pre-approve it tonight, subject to the inclusion of this.
subject to the inclusion of that, yeah, it would be approved.
Okay.
So it'll be what you have on the agenda with the clause will be on the back. It's kind of like our addendums we do on contracts, right, Jack?
Actually, it'll be inserted within that easement, but I'll get with the lawyer that did the easements, and there shouldn't be any problem with it because we have to do it by statute, as a matter of fact.
Okay. All right.
So,
Any other questions? All right, all in favor? All right, 5-0. All right, and I think that takes us down to consent. We have a motion to approve our items on consent agenda.
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Dobson, second by Mr. Howell. All in favor? 5-0. All right, and that will take us to executive session. Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Howell,
Second.
second by Mr. Dickerson. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate y'all coming.